Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the 605. I'm your host, Jason Andera. We'll be bringing in Ryan Deal from 605 Sports a little bit later. But just to remind you, this is the show that explores South Dakota high school hoops. We will find you no matter what class you are, no matter what gender you are. We are out to cover all of the hoops in South Dakota. And starting this week, we will have this on every single week, every Wednesday from now until our preview of the state tournaments coming up in March. A lot has happened in high school hoops so far this season. This is our first episode during the season, and the holiday classics were great. There were a lot of teams that traveled a lot of miles to play a lot of basketball, and the rankings from the preseason have changed a lot up until now, and I'm sure they will continue to change even more here in the next coming weeks. It's been a lot of fun to follow, but we're going to get you caught up first with some of the top performers that we've seen over the last week. So since 2025 started, here are some of the top performers we've seen. Let's start with the girls. Shania Ferguson scored 28 points versus Hot Springs last Thursday as they absolutely torched their competition. Jalen Huntemer, Tuesday night, had a big night for Arlington as they played Madison. 30 points. Anytime you get 30 points, you'll be on this Game Changers list for sure. Ashlyn Copel, the number one prospect in South Dakota out of Wagner, went for 26 points on Thursday night. Another 19 on Tuesday. Unfortunately, Tuesday, they did suffer a loss to Ethan as the defense got to her a little bit, but she had a great all-around game once again. And how about Talia Porter of Stevens? She has absolutely broken out in this 24-25 season, having a season-high 31 points Thursday night against Rapid City Central to give her team a big victory. Cameron Somervold of Dakota Valley. It's been either her or Ella Otten all season long, and Cameron has had a couple of big games. Last Thursday versus Cedar Catholic helped her team to a 60-51 win, 27 points, 9 rebound game, and then Tuesday night came out to play as well, almost scored 20 as they got a win over Sergeant Bluff Luton in Iowa for a 12-point win there. So led her team in scoring in the last two games. How about Louisa Two Eagle of Todd County? She had a great tournament in the LNI and came up with another huge performance on Thursday night, scoring 30 points. And she is one of those players who can absolutely go off and has shown that a couple of times this year. Let's look at the boys' game changers over the last 7 days. Let's start with Trevon Beckman out of Del Rapids St. Mary. This guy is a bucket. 26-point performance versus DeSmet, a huge win for them last Thursday. And then Tuesday night, he and his teammate absolutely exploded. We'll get to Maverick LeBrun a little bit later, but Trevon Beckman went for a 26 and a 22 in his last two games. Ben Brooks from Madison, one of the most talented players in the state, a 35-point explosion as they took on Worthington last Friday. He absolutely came out of his shell. Carson Ness out of Yankton went for 26 points against Brookings on Monday. Easton Neuendorf, a 30-point performance against the number one team in Class B, by the way. 34 points versus Castlewood last Thursday. He is getting tuned up for what could be an enormously challenging week for the Hamlin Chargers. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Tyson Wentland of Corsica Stickney, back-to-back 29-point performances. He went for 29 against Canastota on Thursday, and then Tuesday night, another 29-point performance against MVP, and he is just an automatic double-double every time he gets a chance to go after the basketball and get his shots up. So great performance by all those guys and helping their teams to wins for the most part. Time to go to the real deal. Ryan Deal, the sports writer of the year in South Dakota, is here to talk hoops with us. And Ryan, it's been another fun week of hoops, and there's been a lot to go over in the last couple of weeks. What have you been up to, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we talked earlier in the year, whenever the calendar flips to this time of the year, it's just something different for me. And I know a lot of people just get excited about the basketball season and get into as many games as you can. Before we got to January, went to Rapid City and covered the Lakota Nation Invitational. And that's always one you circle on the calendar. A lot of games, a lot of other different events going on. So that was certainly fun to cover. And we also got to give a shout out to Marvin Richard, the third from Pine Ridge. Just had a whale of a tournament. Most points scored ever at the Dakota Nation Invitational, 151 points. Scored 57 in one of those games, which is a LNI record. So Marvin Richard the third is a must-watch player in the state, and very nice kid, very very humble demeanor. Enjoyed talking with him. Should also mention that a couple teams out there that won at Rapid City Christian Boys and Marquee Luta girls for the Crusaders. That was their fourth LNI championship in a row. So just a great run that Coach Rama and that bunch is on, and they're definitely a top 5 team, I believe, in the state. And I know they're going to play at a classic coming up in Mitchell. So some teams on the east side will get a chance to watch those guys. And Rapid City Christian got some revenge. They lost to Pine Ridge last year in the championship game, and they beat Pine Ridge this year in the championship game. And Rapid City Christian, I think we'll talk later about some Class A teams, but Rapid City Christian boys, you definitely got to talk about those guys when you talk about the top teams in Class A boys basketball.
So yeah, you've been to a lot of gyms already this year, but what are you looking forward to most here about the next week of hoops? Anything in particular that you're going to be covering?
Yeah, I think Saturday we might as well just kind of talk about both games that are going to be taking place in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls Christian hosts Hamlin in a doubleheader. Girls matchup, that's a top 5 matchup. Number 1, Sioux Falls Christian against number 5, Hamlin. So it'll be fun to see how that one plays out. Certainly a couple teams in the mix, I think, in Class A girls. And I think right now Class A girls I think we're trying to find and figure that out a little bit. I mean, last year the Class A girls tournament was so fun to see how that played out with Vermilion kind of rising to the top, and really I thought a wide open tournament. And I think this year Class A girls, I think we're seeing a lot of parity, and it's going to be fun to see that play out. And so we'll get a good kind of measuring stick game to see how a couple of those teams stack up against each other, and that's kind of the precursor game to really the game of the night. Sioux Falls Christian and Hamlin boys, number 1 against number 2, rematch of last year's state championship. Sioux Falls Christian's number 1, Hamlin's number 2. This will be like their 5th matchup, I believe, in like the last 2-3 seasons or whatever it was. Hamlin's only won 1 game in that little stretch there that they've been playing the last couple of years, but they won the one that mattered most. Hamlin got them last year in the state championship game, just one of those epic kind of a game. So more likely this will be the first of maybe possibly 2 or 3 times that they'll play this year. So certainly that's one everybody around the state will be keeping tabs on.
Let's talk a little bit about what you've got on 605sports.com right now, Ryan. You've got a lot of content on there, been up to a lot of stories. What have you been writing about? Tell us a little recap so people can go check you out.
Yeah, Kobe Sherman, I'm sure a lot of people around the state know his story. Junior season at Viber Hurley, was diagnosed with bone cancer. He was unable to play his sports his senior year at Viber Hurley, but kept a positive, great attitude. A lot of the communities around Viber Hurley really rallied around him, raised money for his medical expenses and all that kind of stuff. And Kobe is a great kid, and he wanted to give back to the people that gave stuff to him. So he organized the first annual Midwest Miracles Classic in Hurley, and the money that was raised, they had a silent auction with some different things. But the money that was raised for that went to pediatric families. So Kobe, gave back to the people that definitely helped him and supported him. So did a story about that. Kind of interviewed Kobe and just to kind of see how that went for him. And I believe he said they raised over $18,000, and I still think there's still some more money trickling in and everything. So just a great event, a great cause that Kobe put together. And I think moving forward, he wants to try to get it to a bigger venue. I think he mentioned maybe trying to get it to the Corn Palace. So Kobe's a great kid and just a great cause. And that was certainly a fun story to write.
Thanks again. That's Ryan on The Real Deal. Ryan Deal from 605 Sports. Make sure to check him out. All right, let's go around the rankings in the state. We'll start in boys class AA. A huge shakeup last night as the Mitchell Colonels took their first loss since last January when they lost to the Harrisburg Tigers. They went into the Harrisburg gym and could not make a hoop. And by the way, the Harrisburg Tigers, yes, they could make plenty of hoops. They were shooting excellently from the outside, got 20 points in the first quarter, jumped all over the Mitchell Colonels, and Mitchell had a comeback in the third quarter, but it was not enough. So they suffered their first loss of the year. They are the number one team as of our last rankings, but we'll see if Lincoln can get inside the door and maybe get their way to a number one ranking after an undefeated start for them. Brandon Valley coming in at number 3, had a good showing in the Hoop City Classic, getting a win against an out-of-state team. Harrisburg, you just saw, beat Mitchell. I'm sure they're going to be moving up next week. They're in at 4. And Spearfish off to an undefeated start at number 5. In boys Class A, we've got Sioux Falls Christian at number 1. Got a win Tuesday night over West Central pretty handily, and they've been sharing the ball excellently so far this year. Brent Wassner is having a tremendous year, and you add what Britton Mulder and Griffin Goodberry have already brought to the court. So many good players on that team. They are solid at number 1 right now, but Hamlin lurking behind them, the team that won the state championship last year, did lose in the Hoop City Classic to Houston, Tennessee, but that was a very tough team with a couple of college prospects on it. So although you'll see a 1 in the loss column, take that with a grain of salt. Number 3, Dakota Valley, off to an undefeated start. They've got some great performances from Luke Bruns and company. Rapid City Christian coming in at number 4, getting through the LNI and continuing to win. They've got a couple big games coming up to see if they can keep that streak alive. And Lennox played Sioux Falls Christian as tough as anybody and maybe will all season long, comes in at number 5. In boys Class B, the Castlewood Warriors, yes, they took a loss. They lost to Hamlin, but when you lose to a really good Class A team, you stay at number 1 in the polls. They got 11 first place votes, while Del Rapids St. Mary, they got more first place votes than they had last week, but still at number 2. And we talked about their combination. Trevin Beckman and Maverick LeBrun having an outstanding start. Trimmer Hansen, a lot of these guys coming on strong. They've got an absolute 1 through 5 that can do damage against these Class B teams. We'll see if they have a chance to crack down that number 1 spot here soon. Viborg Hurley coming in at number 3, just 1 loss on the year. Leola Frederick was in a tie for 5th. They move into 4th on their own, and then Howard has suffered a couple losses, but has played an extremely tough schedule to start things off, in at number 5. In girls Class AA basketball, wow, a lot of great starts here, especially these top 4 teams. O'Gorman off to an undefeated start. Washington as well, getting through the President's Bowl Classic with no problem at all. Brandon Valley just the 1 loss on the year against O'Gorman. And then Stevens has been off to a great start as well. They did have a hiccup early in the season to Mitchell, but have been really outstanding on the court the last couple of weeks. And Spearfish hangs in at number 5. Girls Class A, Sioux Falls Christian has garnered all but 2 of the first place votes. They are in at number 1, off to a great start on the season. Vermilion had the 1 loss earlier in the year that knocked them out of number 1, but that loss was to number 1 Centerville of Class B, and they came out strong against Tri-Valley and got a win. Brooke Jensen with 26 points in that game. Wagner, it says 5-0 here, but they took their first loss Tuesday to Ethan, a really good Class B team, so they fall for the first time this year, but still a strong number 3. And then Maipialuta, the team that I gave a number 1 vote to, one of the 2 people that did, they have been absolutely crushing it, winning the LNI earlier this year and outscoring their opponents heftily to get things started. They have a little tougher part of their schedule coming up here in a couple of weeks. We'll see if that maybe helps them move up the rankings. Hamlin in at number 5. And now in girls Class B, Centerville getting all the first place votes at number 1. I think you've got to consider Parkston and Lyman contenders for sure. Both undefeated to start the season. Parkston was 6-0 as of the rankings, but now have moved up to 7-0. Lyman, they also won on Tuesday night handily to go up to 5-0 on the year. And Ethan, watch out for them. Yes, they have a loss early in the season, took that loss to Andy Central, and since then have played a very tough schedule and have successfully navigated that schedule. They're in at number 4, but a very tough number 4 team. And then Sandburg Central, Woonsocket, got a win Tuesday night, but have suffered a couple of losses, but the talent is definitely there as a top 5 team. Let's look at some of the big games coming up over the next 7 days. This is always one of my favorite parts of the show, is giving you a little preview of some of the best basketball to watch in South Dakota. And once again, we will start with the girls' action. Tuesday night, Elk Point Jefferson taking on Wagner. Both teams have a loss this year. How's Wagner going to bounce back after that 47-43 loss to Ethan? Well, we'll see. EPJ, by the way, their only loss came on December 20th to Sioux Falls Christian, the number one team in the class. So a very big test for EPJ to see if they maybe have a stake as a top 5 team early in the season. Number 4, let's look at Saturday. Miller taking on Parkston. Miller off to a great start. They have a challenge coming up just this Thursday against Mobridge Pollock. So we'll see if they can get to a 6-0 start and have a battle of unbeatens by Saturday with Parkston, also off to a great start. Lauren Zebart has been awesome for them, but their younger players, Berkeley Zebart and Morgan Maxwell, have also stepped up in a big way for Parkston. So they're a team I'm really looking forward to watching, and they'll get a big challenge on Saturday against Miller. Continuing at number 3, this is a game I think is going to be very interesting. Spirit Lake of Iowa in Class 3A. They're the number 9 team, undefeated, great start for them. But they got a big challenge on Saturday in the Pentagon, a game I will be on the call with Heath Nimke for. Really excited to see how this one turns out as they take on the Dakota Valley Panthers, who have been awesome. We talked about how Cameron Somervold has been off to a great start, but it's been her and Ella Otten, 2 of the most outstanding players in the entire class. The senior Somervold putting up leading point scores the last 2 games. Most of the games before that, it was the freshman Ella Otten putting up those big games. But it's truly a team effort with Dakota Valley. This is really a big chance for them to see maybe we deserve to be ranked higher than people have us at right now. We'll see. So that's coming up on Saturday. Make sure to tune into liveticket.tv for coverage of that game. Our number 2 game of the week, Hamlin taking on Sioux Falls Christian, a top 5 battle in Class A. Hamlin's played one of the toughest schedules in the season so far. They've got wins against Groton, Flandreau, Coleman, Egan, and Castlewood, all teams that are either in the rankings or sniffing the rankings or just one loss. Their only loss this year came in the Hoop City Classic as they took on Ethan. Nothing to be ashamed of there, a low-scoring game that they just couldn't pull out at the end. And they'll face Sioux Falls Christian, who's off to a 7-0 start. Number 1, Avery Reitz has been awesome, a 20-point game for her in the last couple of days. Last year, Sioux Falls Christian won this battle. This is going to be a great doubleheader as they take on each other before the guys started at around 4 o'clock. The number 1 game to look forward to this week, it's got to be O'Gorman at Washington, right? These are the 2 teams in AA that usually start the conversation for elite teams in the class. One of these 2 teams has won AA in each of the last 4 seasons. In fact, 7 of the last 10 champions have come from one of these 2 schools. They've started out the year both undefeated, both number 1 versus number 2. It's going to be a battle of great guard play. I've seen Grace Peterson play for Washington. She's been phenomenal on her start. They've gotten some great help from their freshman class as well. O'Gorman also has some help from their younger classes, and Sadie Merman has done a great job melding in with that O'Gorman lineup to make a lot of stars and a really tough team to beat. That one's coming up on Tuesday night. Can't wait for that one. Let's move on to the top 5 games to watch over the next 7 days in boys basketball. And coming in at number 5, how about Woolsey-Wessington at Sioux Valley? Now, Woolsey-Wessington hasn't been a power in basketball for a couple years, but they are out to a great start this season. Both Moshe and Caleb Richmond, especially Caleb lately, has been really filling it up in the point department. A great start for them, 5 wins in a row, but they head to the Cossack Center for the Round Ball Classic, and they're playing a class up against a really good Class A team. And Sioux Valley wants to prove, even though they have a loss earlier this year to Clark Willow Lake, that they maybe belong back where they're used to being in that top 5 conversation. In at number 4, Castlewood at Clark Willow Lake. This is coming up next Tuesday, the 14th. We're going to see just how good this Clark Willow Lake team is. I gave them a vote in the top 5. They have been really impressive so far. They have started off with wins against Sioux Valley, DeSmet, and Howard. We're going to see if Castlewood maybe belongs in that grouping with them. Castlewood just the one loss on the year. They only lost to Hamlin, got beat up pretty good in that one. But I think this is a really good battle between the Cyclones and the Warriors to see maybe if they can get some momentum back after losing it for Castle with the number one team in Class B going against an undefeated team in Class A. The number 3 game to watch coming up in the next 7 days. Next Tuesday, Howard takes on DeSmet. Now, throughout the records a little bit, these two teams have a little bit of a rivalry. Last year played in the championship game for all the marbles. Howard got that one done. DeSmet has maybe taken a little step back this year. Howard has also got a couple of losses this year, but trust me, this is one worth watching. Two very talented teams, two very talented coaches, a lot of talent on the floor to see how this one plays out. I think it's going to be a dandy, and hopefully it's been as good as the last couple of games that these two teams have played against each other. The number 2 game to watch in the next week, how about Rapid City Christian and St. Thomas More? A battle of two really good Rapid City teams. St. Thomas More, they lost their first game of the season to Houston, Tennessee, but have been really impressive behind Declan Duffy, their really lone senior who's been making a contribution, and a very young team who looks like they're only going to get better and better. This one's going to be played at the Mines campus at the King Center. Rapid City Christian off to a great start. They've actually beaten St. Thomas More in the last 2 meetings. This is going to be a challenge for both teams, and the winner of this one is going to truly deserve a chance to move up in the rankings next week. That brings us to the number 1 game coming up in the next week, and this might be one of the number 1 games of the season. We've got a rematch. Hamlin, Sioux Falls Christian. Last year they played in the title game for all the marbles. Hamlin got the win, the first time anybody beat Sioux Falls Christian all season long. But they played twice in the regular season last year. Sioux Falls Christian got both of those games. So this will be the 4th meeting in basically just over a year between these two teams, and they could match up 1 or 2 more times yet this year on the schedule. I think this is going to be a dandy. Last year in the championship game, 53-50. Hamlin, won a low-scoring game, got it done though, and I think this might not be the last time these two teams play against each other. But star power is what we're going to be talking about. Zach Van Meeteren, Easton Neuendorf. Lots of great shooting from Hamlin, and then we've got what we already talked about, a full roster, including Griffin Goodberry, the SDSU commit for Sioux Falls Christian. So a ton of great games coming up in the next week. Make sure to let me know throughout the week, too, if you have any top performers that you want to be on the Game Changers list for next week. And also, great feedback anytime you see me out at a game. Come out and chat. I'd love to see you. I'll be out at the Pentagon this Saturday, so if you're out there, come say hi. We'll see you guys next week.